Hello, everybody. How is everybody? Listening to CHU time signal 3330 because I had to change the batteries of the clock. And of course, it doesn't retain anything. So once you change the batteries, you gotta set it back to its date and time. So it was the perfect time to do this. Nice to have you on board. What else do we have? Here we go. So, hello everybody. Lots of thunderstorm activity here in North America. Since yesterday evening, there's a lot of static crashes. So seems like there's a lot of thunderstorm activity not very far. And I just spilled my drink. Okay. This is not a good thing. Just gonna do a little something here, guys. Not the best of things to do, but that's what you have to pay when you put a little too much in your glass. So maybe I should take a sip right now. And here you go. Okay. Now, of course, my pad is full of water drops, which means it's not going to work. Oh, man. How is everybody? Hope you're all right. So, well, at least I didn't spill it in the computer, because that would have been the end of the show. Oh, man. The rest doesn't matter. Okay. Why not, Matt? I've had pancakes at pretty much any time of day or night. It's perfect. So let's go to the beginning of the chat because I am at the bottom and I'm going to miss out on a lot of stuff. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. This is the Wednesday edition, or depending on where you live, it's the Thursday edition of the live show. And we are here to entertain and have fun talking about radio. And this is a show that is twice a week on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 0 UTC. That means for a big chunk of the world, it's actually Thursday. And we also have a Friday show, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. That's 20 hours UTC. That one is also for some people Saturday, but for a big part of the world, it's still Friday. And I hope everybody will enjoy the show today. Of course, we talk about radio, shortwave radio, scanner radio, everything radio. As long as it has an antenna and receives signals, we pretty much talk about it. There's a beautiful chat room. If you have a Gmail account, you can, of course, join in to chat with the people all over the world that are, I think, I can honestly say, some of the best and most amazing people in the world that are here to have fun and to respect each other. And this is what's all about. Basically, what do we do? We have a Facebook group with a lot of the same amazing people that are still very nice and very polite and that are just there to have fun and share, in between these live shows. Here it's kind of cool. It's like a big room where you have a lot of people and people are all like, here and chatting live. Well, the Facebook group is to continue that spirit of fun and interaction, and it's actually working well. A lot of people are posting what they're listening to, pictures of them listening to. I like the pictures of radios. I like the pictures of what you're listening to. I like the pictures when you're in the picture, showing you're in the middle of a park somewhere, or in the middle of the forest doing some radio listening. I find that so cool because it's so nice to have a representation of us actually doing the hobby in a specific spot and a specific place. So it's really a lot of fun for that. And I really like that. I like the fact that we can hear and see what people are receiving all over the world. Actually, it's kind of a very, very nice group to see all of that, and I'm very happy to have all of you here on that group. Official SWL channel is the group's name, so of course that's where we are. And hope everybody will continue posting and have fun with all of that is happening in the world of radio. And I'm not talking about the show from Glenn Hauser, which is an excellent show, by the way, that if you've never heard Glenn Hauser, World of Radio show, you have to listen. It's an amazing program. He packs so much information in 30 minutes that you got to listen to it like multiple times. In a week that I have the time, I actually listen to World of Radio at least 3 times. Why? Because there's always something I missed out, or there's always something that I kind of heard and I want to go back to. So my preferred method, of course, when it's possible, is through shortwave radio. They are World of Radio is broadcast through WRMI and WTWW, I believe. So WBCQ. So there's a few airings here and there. But if you miss it or don't know where to listen to, you can actually go and to worldofradio.com. He has every episode there. And you can even ask your assistant. What I do with mine is, call my assistant to have, my commands. And I say, play World of Radio podcast by Glenn Hauser. It actually gets it and plays it. So, you can actually use your assistant for that. And of course, sometimes I do that when I missed it on some of the shortwave frequencies, or if I want to listen to it again in a more like quiet environment. I'll use my Google Assistant for that, and it's a great show. And I thought I'd mention that because it's one of the great resources on our radio hobby, and a lot of people don't know that it exists. So and I actually take the time to post from time to time the link to this live show in his World of Radio IO group. So I think it's fair that I also promote his show at the same time. I'm kind of self-promoting here on his IO group. So might as well promote his World of Radio show, which is for me top notch. Not everybody likes his style or Glenn Hauser, but I always found it really, really nice. Everything that he does is great. He has his opinion, his way of doing things, which is totally fine. I got my way of doing things. I sometimes get some people ranting because I said an F word here or an S word there, or hey, I got my way of doing things. I'm not the kind that's overly sensitive on issues, so I might drop an F bomb sometimes, but it's life, and so it's like we all have our way of doing things. I try to behave and have the best way of doing things, and not using these words. But sometimes, when you've got that guy asking questions 18 times the same question, you're like, yeah, you kind of lose it at some point. I think it all happens to everybody, but I try to be as as perfect as possible. Perfect is a big word for me, but let's say I'm trying to be as polite as possible. And it's nice to have everybody here, by the way. Lots of static crashes. That's a sure sign of summer that is actually slowly creeping in on us from time to time. I wanted to talk about the 820 schedules. Be very careful, everybody, because I see a lot of posts of a lot of people that are sharing wrong information because they don't realize that their favorite website they go to doesn't have the good information with the new schedules. This takes several weeks to fix itself in general. So if you post something, it might, and I correct you, don't be offended, please. It's because I know that some people will have the wrong information. So I like to kind of correct. I like people. I like to tell people that the right information about what they're listening to. And I know sometimes it's. So I just don't want you guys to be offended by the fact that I might correct your schedules or something. And I sometimes mess up, and I sometimes don't say the right thing, and you guys actually correct me. So it's part of all of this, and it's important we have the right information and know what we're listening to. One of the things that I noticed that is also very important is to know and train your ears to specific to the specifics of different languages. You don't have to understand Portuguese to notice that it sounds like Portuguese and not Spanish, for example. This is one case where a lot of people mix up the languages. Portuguese has a very, very unique way of pronunciation of a lot of words, and it's easy to differentiate from Spanish, for example. And you don't have to be like I said, you don't have to understand the language to actually know that it's not this or that. Sometimes it's not that you know what language it is, but you will know that it's not another language. So, and I'll give an example. Yesterday evening, somebody posted Radio Romania. And actually, it posted PBS China, I think, the CNR1, Chinese National Radio 1. And I corrected the person on the official Shortwave group, telling that person is like, well, that's not China you're listening to, but that's Radio Romania in Romanian. And of course, the information was not accurate on the website that the person was using because the A schedules were not updated yet totally. On EIBI Space, it does state that 0 to 0200 Radio Romania is in Romanian. So I listened because, first of all, my knowledge, and that comes through a lot of listening and a lot of times a lot of listening experience also, because you get to a point where you're listening into a broadcast and you say, well, that's that station. But my experience will tell me, well, you can't be listening to China on that frequency at this time, especially because China's in the middle of the day. And so a 6 megahertz or 7 megahertz frequency, middle of the day in China, will not make it through up to here. But that's knowledge that comes with time. It's a complex thing. And it is absolutely normal for a lot of people not to fully understand that yet. Remember that when you're listening to shortwave, you're listening to the world. Transmitting stations are in a special, in another country, another continent. And you have to look at a map of, at this time, is it daylight or nighttime at that location? That gives you an idea of, could I be hearing a station on a specific frequency at this time of day or night? And it depends on the frequency they're using. So that knowledge is, that observation and that knowledge comes with time. I mean, I've been doing this, for 38 years. So of course, in 38 years, my knowledge, grew with time, understanding what I can listen to. I remember when I got my DX100, it came with a list of frequencies that had no schedule. So I didn't understand. For me, the first thing is, all these stations broadcast 24 hours a day, probably on those frequencies. which is not the case. That's the first thing that I learned. It's like, oh no, they have schedules. They sometimes have a few hours or whatever. That I didn't know. Second, I didn't know. I picked up that list and it was like, oh, 3300 Radio Cultural Guatemala. And of course, I punched that in. Well, actually, I tuned that in or tried to find it like, at 1 in the afternoon. Yeah, but, Guatemala to Montreal at 1 p.m. in August is daytime, Pat, between both countries. You ain't going to hear 3300. Once again, I didn't know. I had no idea. I saw a list of frequencies and I thought, oh, these are the things I can listen to. And it's with time that I, started. My first couple of years were probably more hit and miss type tuning around, meaning I would tune around every band. And, I still do it, by the way, because there's a very complex ecosystem of frequencies, times, and depending on what you're listening to and where you're listening from and who you're listening to, where they're broadcasting from, which means that you'll be surprised at frequencies you can use. I always say their general rule, below 15 megahertz, below 10 megahertz at night, and above 10 or 15 megahertz in the daytime. But it's not quite true. It's not exactly that. It's kind of like that, but there's a lot of factors that play in there that actually mean, yeah, an example when I was a teen is my curiosity made me tune everywhere. Even when there's nothing, I would tune. And that's why I always say, tune every frequency range all the time, whatever time or of day or night. Doesn't matter. Try it. You'll be surprised at some results sometimes and things you'll get. And curiosity of tuning all the range of frequencies your radio does tune is going to bring you a lot more interesting and unusual stuff that you didn't think was possible. Then, of course, comes the identification. But, I remember that I didn't know that day-night stuff that much. It was explained a little bit in the manual, but I remember when I listened to Radio Australia in the summertime, 21740, and it was like 0300 UT. Well, that is 10 p.m., 11 p.m. in Montreal in the summer. So you're like, what gives? When you start learning all this stuff, it's like, I'm hearing 13-meter band at 11 p.m. at night from Australia. Oh, but there's a little piece of information you got to understand here. The majority of the path of the signal from Australia to North America at that time is in the daylight. So yes, 21740 with the high solar activity of the time propagated through the Pacific Ocean, which was totally in daylight. And even part of Western North America was still in daylight at that time. So there was only, half of North America in nighttime, which didn't prevent me from listening to that signal on a very high frequency. So, these are things that happen, and you're like, you understand that you got to be careful with the rule of what frequency propagates at what time, because it's more complex than that. You can't just cut it to that's how it is. So, and then comes the schedules, of course, the changing of frequencies and stuff. Never forget another thing here is that there isn't a 100% schedule on shortwave. We tend to think shortwave broadcasts like we take AM, FM broadcasts from our local stations. We always know that at the top of the hour on that station, it's news, and at nighttime, that program is playing at that time, and it's been like that for years, and that's the way it is. Shortwave isn't like that. Shortwave is different, and the frequencies change twice a year, and sometimes the programs change. And that means that, and sometimes they change in the middle of a broadcast schedule. If if you're Radio Romania, when you start telling them, well, that frequency you chose for summer, and it's always crappy, they're going to change it somehow. They will change it. Actually, Radio Romania is one of the stations that is very proactive on that. They actually will say, okay, one of our two frequencies isn't making it. Let's choose another one. So even in the middle of a scheduled, summer or winter or whatever, they might change. So no schedules is 100%. And the real best thing that you can do is, first of all, have several sources. I like EIBI space because it's usually fairly accurate. It's not perfect. It doesn't, I noticed yesterday, 3 or 4 mistakes in it. And the thing is, so they're not 100%. And, some stations might change. And that's where your knowledge of different things can make it possible for you to identify something better. And you can, so I talked about propagation, which is very complex, and knowing that in China is daytime and blah blah blah, but there's a much easier way, and it's through, like I was saying earlier, understanding what language you're listening to. So if you're capable of making a difference between Spanish and Portuguese, French, Chinese and Japanese, there's a difference, a big enough difference that even if you don't understand the language, it's easy to make a difference between Mandarin and Japanese. That is a big help because, for example, the CNR1, if you get acquainted with what Chinese language or Mandarin sounds like, you could see yesterday that, that's not Chinese. So it can be CNR1 because that doesn't sound like Chinese. Now, you don't have to know that it's Romanian. But knowing that it's not Chinese eliminates one possibility. So if you only had that in the schedules, you already knew, well, okay, that can't be China because it's not Chinese. So it must be something else. And then there's that other searching of, okay, so if it's not that, what could it be? And, on the EIBI space, that's where you found, I found, Radio Romania is on that frequency. It's really a lot of knowledge, and it's really taking the time to make out what you're listening to. And there's another little thing I'm going to actually talk about because somebody asked me that question, and that somebody is Elizabeth that says hi before the show. She actually sent me a couple of emails saying that she really enjoys listening to the live shows and funds everybody, of course. Fantastic. But she has a couple of questions that I'm going to answer. One about the Kenwood R5000 she's using that she has a question about, the FSK mode on it. And the other one is concerning a portable receiver, analog receiver she has that she's owned for a long time, and that she finds that broadcasts repeat at a certain range above their frequency, and she wants to know why there's a double, or it seems like a double of some of the strong broadcasts on her radio. So I'm going to talk about that, and we're going to start saying hello to the chat room and try to catch up a little bit because I blabbed for 25 minutes, so I'm kind of far behind already. I'm going to try to catch up a little bit, and then we're going to answer those questions. Bobby Burgess, WA5107 in Morgan City, Louisiana. Nice to have you here. Mark Cope, Dallas, Texas. Nice to have you here. 97 virus killing degrees. Wow. Record for the date. Man, that is hot. Kevin Wood, nice to have you here from Nova Scotia. Rob in Phoenix, Arizona. Jim and Robin Milligan, nice to have you on board. Yeah, a lot of thunderstorms. Doing a lot of static crashes. That is going to be a lot of our summer listening. James Powers, KC1ENJ from New Hampshire. Rodrigo Galter, nice to have you here. Andy Packrat, nice to have you on board. Jill is flexing the bling. I was thinking of what pause I would do, and I was fixing the sign. I was like, oh, I should wear the sign and do the picture with that. So anyways, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to find different pauses that are going to be different, but Skip Davis, nice to have you here. Joe Rodman in the Chicago area. Larry in Georgia, nice to have you here. Matt, MDK2 in Denver, Colorado, USA, W0MDK, W80080SWL. Jerry DX, nice to have you here. Mike Hill, nice to have you on board from Arkansas. His shortwave call sign from long ago. WDX50. Huh, interesting. Wow. Rufus Newt from Laurentian Valley, Ontario. Jersey bound. Nice to have you on board, my friend. And thanks for the donation. Wanted to mention that I did receive it today. Thank you so much for the donation. Much appreciated. James Farley in New Jersey. Nice to have you here. Ian Millett. Nice to have you here. Ian from Baltimore. Aiden Saylor. Nice to have you here from North Carolina. Sarah Mason. Nice to have you here. Osakama. Nice to have you here from Germany. Pretty cool. Sarah Mason from Colorado. Arthur's Crafter's Kitchen. Nice to have you all on board from Massachusetts. Yes, still alive and still healthy. Absolutely. I've not been going out a lot, honestly. And today the government issued a kind of told us that we are at the top of the curve, pretty much. We've reached that top. So now, if everything goes right, it's going to start in the next week or two to go down rather than continue going up. So they're kind of hinting of a possible return to some of a normality of life, maybe in a few weeks from now. But of course, we'll see how things goes. I went just before the live show, put out the garbage, and I actually stopped for a minute because I noticed that it was so quiet outside compared to what I usually hear in the city noise. And I was like, wow, this is so quiet, and there was nobody around. It was crazy. Steve Wynn, nice to have you here from Colorado. Almesam, nice to have you here. And says, funny, even the SDR, the University 20 has the wrong station mark for 6100. Yeah, they haven't updated the schedules. It takes a few weeks sometimes for many, many places. It's really Radio Romania. Simon Templar, nice to have you on board. Jim Heff from Rhode Island. Nice to have you on board. Radio Romania is 6100 in Romanian. Rodrigo Galter, nice to have you here. And connected on live, starting live, listening to CHU 3330. Joe Sombra Newhouse, nice to have you here, my friend. From Brazil. Arches Ali Crafter says lots of static last night in 75 and 80. I was listening to 49 meters, and I mean the amount of even tonight I'm listening to 3330, and there's a lot of static crashes tonight also. Raffleman 336, nice to have you here from Southwest Ohio, and 8 UCN, ready for thunderstorms to pound us. So that's probably the Ohio thunderstorms. Railroad Mike, nice to have you on board from the New York Hudson Valley. And aka Mike Miles on Facebook. Great group, by the way. Thank you very much. Nice to have you here. And if you're Railroad Mike, you probably... Do I have it close? Yeah. There's... I don't know if there's an equivalent in the U.S. for this, but for those listening to the railroads on the VHF, UHF range... This is an amazingly nice book to have, the Canadian Trackside Guide. This is all the frequencies and track information and a lot. It's very detailed in every province here. I don't know if they're U.S., you guys have this, but if you're a fan of listening to railroads, great book to have here in Canada. I mean, and you know what? This is a 2014. You don't have to buy it every year because it's usually quite... the same information year after year. But although now 6 years, I should probably purchase the new one. But I don't know. I don't know if you guys in the US have that, but if you're a railroad fan for VHF, UHF is great. Eventually the static crash got here at 2 a.m. this morning. Quite a light show. Wow. Okay. Jim Mutter, nice to have you here, Jim, from Prospect, Connecticut. Nice to have you here. Rufus, I won't be able to stick around long. Reach my data cap. Oh, really? Man. What a rip off these companies, eh? $10 per gig of data. They are ripping people off with that data cap. It costs them pennies to actually give you gigs of data. Sorry to hear that. Northern Dawn, nice to have you here from Lockdown UK. James Farley, Pirate on 6930 USB. Let's check it out. Yep. It's actually 6932 lower sideband. 6932 lower sideband here is what I'm getting in the Pirate. David, KJ4CMY, nice to have you on board in Middle Georgia. Rick Satter, nice to have you here. Demifly, I can't pick up anything on my shortwave PL600. Look, it's either defective, but the big idea. Where are you located, by the way? But the big idea is probably you have too much noise around you. The PL600 has a signal indicator at the top that is five bars. Are you maxed out at 5 bars that are on when you're trying to listen to shortwave? If it is, too much noise around you. Make sure that the switch on the left side of the receiver isn't set to local, because you have local in DX. That's not possible that you actually put it on local, so it's not sensitive. Check a few of these things, because in general, the PL600 is pretty good. Tech Guy, WWV is weak tonight. Nice to have you here. Data cab resets on Friday. At least you won't have to wait long. Railroad Mike, where's Paul? He was here like 2 minutes before the show and went out. He's outside, I think, in the backyard. He wanted to go outside. And because they're announcing that it's going to be raining here, I thought, well, I'll go out now because they're gonna you ain't gonna go out later tonight because of the rain. Frank Ireland, nice to have you here, Frank from Tampa. Zach Ariantel, nice to have you here, Zach. No, not going crazy yet. I got to say today, it doesn't happen very often, but somehow today I was kind of down a little bit. There was kind of something that was kind of in my mood wasn't right. I'm not the kind of guy that gets, negative or down in general. I'm pretty easygoing even when in a lockdown. And but I don't know, today it was like, I don't know, something today was just like, you know what, I just feel like, I don't know, I don't feel like, it's a cool day today for some reason. And eventually I cooked some fish for supper and took a little drink and was kind of okay, well, kind of getting back at it. And I think what cheered me up, actually, because I was, probably down like an hour ago, is putting this sign across here to take the picture. It actually put a smile on my face, and I was like, oh, man, you know what? It cheered me up a little bit. WOHP 1390, nice to have you here. Rick in Ohio. Brian Penny from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Mason says, big thunderstorms in Indianapolis. Stay safe, my friend. So 6932 is lower sideband. Took me a little a minute to kind of figure out there was, lower sideband. Dow Jones. Matt, I have to get the World of Radio online. For whatever reason, it's on 5 times a week on 7780 and only a couple of times on other frequencies, none of which are good copies. Yeah, and he's kind of got to get the frequencies that he's offered, because he's got a free ride, for what I understand, on most stations. So they just, put him on when they have empty spots. Giuseppe, nice to have you on board from upstate New York. Vince Perrault, salut et bienvenue. J'espère que tu vas bien, mon ami. Almay Sam says, I nearly always miss Glenn Hauser's broadcast. I have access to Glenn Hauser's broadcast quite often, but what I notice is I just don't seem to be listening when it's on. Mike Hill, Glenn Hauser has been around forever, it seems, at least back to the 80s. Yeah, absolutely. He's been, I remember the first time that I heard Glenn Hauser's roller radio by accident. Probably, I'd say late 80s, early 90s. And it took a while for me to actually stumble upon a schedule of when he's on and remember that he's on to listen to. John Heberlin, nice to have you on board. And by the way, for those that don't know, I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Marvin Motz, konnichiwa. How are you, my friend? From Japan Islands. And John is in Boulder, Colorado. Northern Dawn, spend the evening listening to Pirates and Radio Thailand earlier. Cool. Rifleman 336, well, you're French Canadian and the French invented the F word. It's possible. It's actually very, the F word in Quebec is actually in the French language used a lot. We have curse words here in Quebec that are very unique because there's not a lot of countries or very few people around the world that actually use that. We use almost every church item and as a curse word. So, and I read somewhere that we were one of the only places around the world that actually used church words as cursing words. And mixed in there's a lot of that F word also. The Expeditions, nice to have you here from Ottawa. The S word comes from shipping. I'm going to try to, it's like a shipping. How many senses? I figured they had old schedules. Kevin Jane Apollo, nice to have you here. WS2H from New Jersey. Vietnam in English, 7315. That is from WHRI. Vianney Arsenault, salut et bienvenue de la Gaspésie, VA2 VMA. Nice to have you on board from eastern part of Quebec. Operation Radio, nice to have you here. Is hearing the Royal Air Force from the UK on 5450. And Shannon Volmet from Ireland, 5505 upper sideband. Zach says, I've been practicing enough. I can now tell the difference between Danish, Swedish, and Norwegian by ear. Yeah, Norwegian has this. I remember when I was listening to Radio Sweden and Radio Norway. They were Norwegian and Swedish as I was able to differentiate. Also. Kim Mahane, nice to have you on board. Teleworking from Yokosuka, Japan. Watching live streaming. Life is good. Cool. Nothing like working and watching something that you like at the same time. Why not? Bob Laporte, bonsoir. VA2BIK. Bob, un plaisir de t'avoir de Gatineau. Nice to have you here from the western part of the province of Quebec. Matt says, if it weren't for shortwave radio, I probably wouldn't be able to pick out Korean from other Asian languages, but now I can. Yeah, well, you got to listen to shortwave to have that capacity of knowing languages by sound, one from the other. RFDXer, nice to have you here from Southeast Colorado. Mickey Delmage, nice to have you on board. Sign that for me. Normally it would be opening night for the Stanley Cup hockey playoffs. Yep. It's radio. There won't be any hockey in a little while. So, radio. Got a radio on. William Helms from Florida. Nice to have you here. Howie W3MCK. Nice to have you here, Howie, from Northeast Pennsylvania. More countries should get back on shortwave. Great news and information. Excellent way to improve language skills. Absolutely. You know what? There is a article on Shortwave Listening Post today. How with the crisis that's happening right now, the number of radios sold is on the increase, and by a lot. People are buying radios to have news of what's happening. Hal Mason, I sometimes listening to NHK, but can only make out a few words I've learned. What else do we have? Yeah, and the Call Israel is not on the air anymore. William Moser, nice to have you here. James Farley has 4724 USB, which is the US Global High Frequency or HF Command Army with coded messages. Keegan in Northwest Arkansas, nice to have you here. 88 Fahrenheit, wow. That's summer weather for being outside. Sea level, nice to have you on board. Radio signals go across the plane and may bounce off the dome if there's a dome. Research flat earth. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We all know the earth is flat. Gaétan Bellil, bonsoir de Sainte-Sophie. C'est un grand plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous. Matt says the big mistake I see a lot is people IDing a CNR1 jam station as the station instead of CNR1. It's tricky if the jam station is also supposed to be in Mandarin. Yeah, that one is a tricky one, absolutely, because over time listening to shortwave, I've got into a certain mode where I will actually hear a station and it's going to say in the schedules, for example, Radio Free Asia. We all know that Radio Free Asia is heavily jammed using either Fire Drake, which is continuous music. That one is easy because it's continuous Chinese music. So we know Fire Drake. But CNR1 is most of the time talk in Mandarin. And often the same language is used for Radio Free Asia because they're broadcasting to China. And then it's, what am I listening to? And my normal, I would say my instinct always gets into, well, this must be CNR1. Because CNR1 is very powerful. They pump up that transmitter to like 500 kilowatts. So when propagation is good, it's the one that's dominating. That said, it's not impossible that you get Radio Free Asia for several reasons. Propagation from CNR1 not making it to you, but Radio Free Asia making it, and so on. But it's having the knowledge to be able to differentiate and know that, am I listening to Radio Free Asia or am I listening to CNR1 jamming it? And that one's a tricky. That's part of something very tricky, very difficult. And you got to find the little clues. Top of the hour, the way that they actually go at the top of the hour, the way that they do things. If you don't understand Chinese, it's little signs within the transmission that gives you the idea that, oh, this is CNR1 or this is Radio Free Asia. Because most of us don't speak Chinese, so it's kind of difficult to really make a difference between both. Everybody's saying hello to Elizabeth. Simon Templar, nice to have you here from Portland, Oregon. What else do we have? Almay Sam's first stable top receiver was a new Kenwood R5000. Cool. So send me some pancakes, Matt. Mr. Simba, nice to have you on board. 73 Rufus, sorry to have you leave because of all the gigabytes adding up and being charged at a way too heavy price, unfortunately. Zach says, pretty big thunderstorm going to happen tonight here too. Wow. Ham Extra, nice to have you on board. I'm going to check something, but maybe they've changed. It's 7 degrees Celsius here. But they were saying, so I'm just going to check out if the weather has changed or anything. So here, okay, not tonight, but tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we might have snow here, which is crazy. Tomorrow is going to be rainy and very kind of cool. And tomorrow night, we might have snow. Actually, all the days from now until at least Tuesday are like grayish and rainy. That's going to be good for my looking outside in the gray times when all is locked out. Pretty crazy. Am Extra, nice to have you on board from Archer Heights, Texas. Mongoose, nice to have you on board from Mississippi. Mike Hill says, my WDX50 call sign was through Newark News Radio Club. They folded shortly after I joined. I don't think I was the cause, though. I hope not. Keegan, this morning at 8:06 a.m. Central Daylight Time, got 88.9 FM. NPR station KETR, Commerce, Texas. Station said high temperature forecast around 89 Fahrenheit in the area. Wow. Fred Newland, well, thank you for being here. There would be no channel of radio if it wasn't for all of you guys. Jeff Barrett, nice to have you on board from just north of Cincinnati. So Moses, the Shack mascot, and I are enjoying the show. Cool. VT Radio, nice to have you here. Paul, AA1SU from Essex Junction, Vermont. Ron Hicks, nice to have you here. He's listening and drawing cartoons. Oh, cool. I have no drawing ability. I have difficulty drawing a straight line. KM4LDI, nice to have you here, my friend. Fred Newland, any updates on schedules of Voice of Korea? I would check the EIBISpace.de website because you usually have pretty accurate schedules for Voice of Korea. Voice of Korea usually doesn't change too much with the frequencies. What they do is they have that time shift because of the time, but usually keep most of their frequencies pretty much at the same frequencies all year. Clark Gilson, nice to have you here from Southwest Wisconsin, KB9SJD. Almay Sam, remember when Radio Shack published the various frequencies to listen to? Yeah. Edvaldo Lemes, nice to have you here from Brazil, PY4001 SWL. Railroad Mike, nice book. I have a locomotive radio in my shack. Been listening to the rails since I was a kid with a 4-channel crystal scanner. Wow, cool. I actually wanted to be a train engineer when I was young. My dad would bring me down to the port of Montreal where there was a lot of trains because I would I always loved to watch trains. And I had a train set when I was 8, 9 years old. And I always said, I want to drive trains when I grow up. So, it's like, wow. I still enjoy trains, and one of my activities for a long time with the scanner radio was tuning into the train frequencies on the VHF range, 160, 161 megahertz. Still a lot of activity here, actually. Mongoose, what is that? What's in that orange juice? Vodka. Vodka and orange juice. That's what's in there. RFDX here, lots of thunderstorms over the southeast US and Illinois. But that's all the static crashes I hear. Clark Gilson, Ghost in the Machine. It brings me back to when I was a teen and I got that album from the Police. Shagadin, greetings from Argentina. Nice to have you here. Trying to get into shortwave radio listening, looking for a good used radio at this stage. Love your channel. How much money you have to spend? That's always the big question when you want to be a radio listener. Is what exactly? How much money do you have to spend on a radio? Because sometimes it's surprising that you can have something new rather than used. And of course, it depends what you want to have. Do you want to have a portable radio or a desktop or that? So many questions before you actually choose something. Andy Packrat, I'm still learning every day. So can someone explain what a static crash is? Okay, static crashes are done. So, you'll hear them as a instant but very short crackle on your radio. And most of the static crashes are actually interference done by lightning. When a thunderstorm actually goes through, and you might have heard that on AM radio. If you listen to an AM radio, when you have thunderstorms coming in, you'll often hear static crashes over your favorite stations on AM. Well, the same is true on shortwave, but the problem with shortwave is that because of shortwave propagation, the static crash might come from 1,000 miles away. So you guys in the US are having thunderstorms. I'm hearing static crashes tonight here quite regularly, probably coming from those storms, hundreds of kilometers away. And basically, every time there's a lightning bolt from a thunderstorm, it does generate some wide frequency transmission of of noise. And that's what most of us call static crashes. It's higher in the summertime because the summertime, more thunderstorms. It's more quiet in the wintertime because there's not that many thunderstorms when it's winter. And so that's pretty much when we refer to a static crash on the show here. Well, very often we're referring to the static or the interference caused by lightning and thunderstorms. I saw the Police in concert once. It was a really, really good experience. Very nice. Really, really enjoyed that. Jean-Marc Letz, nice to have you on board from Strasbourg, France. Daytime 25 Celsius. Wow, summer. That's going to be the hardest one. If you're still confined when it's really, really nice and hot, not being able to go to the beach or anything. What else do we have? But Ghost in the Machine was my first Police album that I actually had. I was a big fan of the Police. It was actually a Christmas gift from my brother because he didn't know what to buy me as a Christmas gift back in, what is it, 82, something like that, 81. And he had noticed that I seemed to be listening quite often to the Police on my little cassettes that I would actually make from the radio. So it gave him the idea to buy me the Ghost in the Machine album, which started pretty much my real big becoming a fan of the Police and Sting after in his solo career. Craig 306, United Kingdom. Nice to have you here from late at night, United Kingdom. Al Mason says, I'd call it the short moment noise on the radio when the lightning strikes. Vianney, yes, signal here, 6932, nice music. Yeah, the kind of interesting, interesting songs playing. Joey D, nice to have you on board. Pascal Jean Provost, nice to have you here from Japan. Mongoose, my mic, your mic audio seems to be clipping. It shouldn't be clipping. This mic never clips. What you might be hearing actually is the background. There's a lot of static and noise and stuff because I have some audio from this coming through. It rarely clips. Artist Ali Crafter's Kitchen says, I like Glenn Hauser, but figuring out his on-air schedule is a challenge. That's why you got to go to worldofradio.com. The schedule is there. Danny, Shortwave, Radio DX. Nice to have you on board from Yonkers, New York. Just received this third loop. This is the MLA30 Plus from eBay. We'll test this one soon. Cool. Ray Carlisi. Nice to have you here from New Jersey. Skip Davis from Yukon, Oklahoma. I actually am doing a test right now. I took one of my MLA30s and I shoved it horizontal on my balcony. And it's interesting because it improved my 19-meter band reception. It seems to be receiving better since I put it flat down rather than standing up. So kind of interesting. Dan V, nice to have you here from Ohio, N8WJZ. We have anything else? Cretendon Tuttle 4, nice to have you here, my friend. Randy in Riverside, California, nice to have you here. Matt says, actually, I've been able to distinguish Mandarin and Japanese thanks to movies I've seen from those countries. If you go with subtitles instead of dubbing, that's another way to get an ear for them. Skip Davis, my MLA30 Plus just cleared customs. It is on the way to U.S. Postal Service. Cool. I purchased 4 or 5 items from China in the past week. They seem to really be back up and running because when all of this virus thing started, they were almost not shipping anything. And it was taking a long time before any shipping or answers to whatever. And all 5 items that I purchased in the last week all shipped within 24 hours, just like before. So they're really getting back. And there's a good chance that by the end of the week, I'll be buying that new loop that goes up to 180 megahertz because I'm very curious. And for $55 US, I mean, come on, I got to get it. I got to get it and test it and compare it to the MLA30 for shortwave and see if it could be an interesting antenna for people that are listening to VHF at the same time. That'd be a nice test also. So there's a good, I'm probably going to purchase it, at the latest, tomorrow at the latest, probably. Maybe even after the show ends here. So it's kind of interesting here. Man. Javen Robert Milligan, what do I think of the bands today? Well, there's still some stuff. That's kind of interesting. And it's very difficult to, because we all say the music. Our parents told us that our music was crappy. And we all say that today's music is crappy. And I think it's more of a... we're just not there anymore, and we like what we had, and we always think that what we listen to is better than whatever was after. And I think there's some amazing stuff today. I'm pretty open-minded on music in general, thanks to karaoke, actually, because going to sing at karaoke with a crowd that is, At the Zoe bar, the crowd is like, I don't know, 27, 28 years old average. I'm an old fart, an old 50-year-old fart there when I go. And I hear a lot, of course, thanks to that, I hear a lot of new music, which I would not be exposed to if it wasn't for going out to karaoke. And you listen to the songs many times, and there's stuff I like. I like Lady Gaga. I like. I mean, there's some stuff I like from all of the newer, or even Lady Gaga is kind of old artist now because there's a lot newer stuff today. But I mean, when you listen to it and you listen to it several times, there's some interesting stuff. It's not the thing that I'm going to buy. I'm not going to buy an album from a new artist unless it's really, really amazing. But I think there's still some interesting stuff. So the K180 WLA antenna, Matt, I think I'm probably going to purchase it after the show tonight. I think it's, I've been thinking about it all week, and it's like, come on, you're doing a shortwave channel, and you're doing a channel that talks about radio. You need to have that and test it out. So I'm going to purchase it tonight. It's done deal. Jeff, K85 QDO, I say have you here from Gross, Texas. And Skip Davis is going to get the K180 WLA next month. When the wife ain't looking. I like that. Vianney Arsenault says, yes, it's true for shortwave listening to be listening frequencies, and that's the same for ham radio. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's try to go down a little more. But the original Skip Davis, the original MLA30 is a pretty good antenna, anyways. That's for sure. Buzz Gold, Sony 6754, Trenton Volmet from the Canadian Forces, strong into Minnesota. Let's try. This is the time when it starts coming in usually. 6754. Not hearing it tonight, but usually as we'll go into the summer, 6754 will get better. One of the frequencies I haven't heard it in a long time is that 15 megahertz frequency. 15034. I haven't heard that one in a very long time. Tom DXer, nice to have you here from the Hudson Valley, New York. Clark Jelson says, not a huge difference, but it's worth the investment. I think the MLE30 is a game changer in the shortwave hobby because now you can get a world-class antenna, reasonable cost. Absolutely. That's what I like of the MLE30 is that it doesn't cost much to have a good antenna for shortwave listening now. I have a hard time with the prices, like, come on, $400 loops, please. And the MLE30 is nice because, okay, there's an affordable loop that really performs well and does a job that you want to listen to shortwave. Roland Harding, one question: will long wire in my loft connected to my Kenwood R5000 be good? Nice to have you here, Kent in England, M3RCH. By the way, I'm 20 minutes behind in the chat. Okay, here's the problem. I don't know. It depends on the noise around your area. If you have a lot of noise, it might not be working well because indoor wires usually will pick up all the noise from everywhere. And if you have neighbors around you, it might not be a good thing. Of course, the first thing you'll have to do is try it. Okay. But you might need to get something that will make it better. And we were talking about, the MLE30 antenna, which is a $44 loop shipped. That might be actually an answer to a noisier environment. So try to wire, but if it's too noisy and you don't pick up a lot, Your other choice, if you can't put an outdoor antenna, would be an MLA30 in a window or patio door, or that might actually work. So Vianney says, hey, 118 viewers, only 32 thumbs up. Come on, guys. Tom the Xer, yep, I heard it, a week ago now. I'm ordering one tonight. $55. Come on. I'm ordering one after this show. I'm actually, look at that, guys. You guys will have it live. So here am I going, ebay.ca. I'm going into my eBay, guys. I'm going to my eBay. And I am K180 loop. So here we go. K180 WLA active loop broadband receiving antenna, 0.1 to 180. And free shipping. So from China, from Hong Kong. And so here it is. I am purchasing it as we speak, $55.88 US. That comes up to $78.30 Canadian. So seller's good. Here we go. So buy it now. So guys, buy it now. Commit to buy. Free shipping. Here we go. Commit to buy. Pay now. Here we go. Pay now. And so PayPal balance plus bank. Yes, that's what I want to do. Confirm and pay. And it's official, guys. I have ordered live on the show the K180 WLA active loop broadband antenna. So here we are. It's official. It's paid. And all I have to do is wait for it, guys. So, of course, all of that will be announced. But it's now purchased officially. It's done. Danny Shortwave, I want to see how well the MLA30 Plus performs on long wave and medium wave compared to the MFJ 1886. One thing for sure is the MLA30 Plus does perform better than the original MLA30, even though it actually stated that it's better above 500 kilohertz. Jeff, KD5 QDO, listening to Radio Habana, Cuba on Emo T7 Tube Radio. Wow. Mickey Dalmage, another way to differentiate CNR1 and Radio Free Asia, find a parallel frequency. Yeah. Gadget people, nice to have you here. From Plano, Texas. Steve in Australia, welcome aboard, my friend. Welcome aboard. RFDXer 6932 lower sideband S8, Southeast Colorado, Walbrook. Now it's off the air, though. Denis Provono, bonsoir et bienvenue. Toujours un plaisir, Denis. Merci. Oh, man. Almay Sam, digital burst on 6661 upper sideband. Yeah, I think that's one of those what's the HFDL digital link or something from aviation, because that's in the aviation band. Danny Shortwave Radio DX radio and model trains, great hobbies. I'm going to build a big table for model trains soon. I'd like, these are so expensive today, but man, I'd like that. I went, so here, not very far from where I live, there's actually a hobby shop that sells only. Sorry, guys, just for a moment here, because okay. So they sell only train stuff, and man, they have a huge um, train village, and it is amazing. Scott George, nice to have you here. Harry Gutman, nice to have you on board. Anybody have thoughts on the Yaesu 60R FT? Scott George, nice to have you here from Oregon. What else do we have? Randall Klons from Chicagoland. Nice to have you here, Randall. What else do we have? Almay Sam says there's tornado warnings. Stay safe, guys. BT Radio a few years ago heard static crashes on FM from an approaching storm on the car radio near Addison, Vermont. As I drove into it, it was a really bad hailstorm. Yeah, when they're really, I use an AM radio to see how bad the storms that are coming in the summer here are going to be. Because really bad thunderstorms have really an amazing amount of static crashes on AM radio. When you have static crashes like every, half second, you know that what's coming is really bad. Seeking CW decoder. YI3WHR. Have you used FLDG? It's not the best, but it's an okay. CW decoders are tricky because when Morse code is sent, okay, there's Paul the cat that wants to go. Paul the cat's here, but he just wants to. He doesn't want to show up. He feels like a prisoner. So 2 seconds, guys. I'm just gonna go and open the door to Mr. Paul that just doesn't want to stay here. Usually he wants to come in and say hi to everybody, but right now he seems to be a little more in the mode of, no, I don't want to see anyone. I want to go back out. And please don't look at all the mess over there. So, anyways. What else do we have? Ron Hicks. Yeah, I saw that somewhere. It's like, don't stand so close to me. He is a pretty good representation of social distancing. Nerdy Gray Fox, good evening. Nice to have you on board, Emile de Quebec. Do you hear Radio Education 6185 tonight? Let me just check it out here. Yep. So it actually if it wasn't for Brazil on 6180, that is pretty strong. It's not too bad tonight here. It's speaking at S7 at moments, and I can hear they're playing music right now. But the problem is I have to use upper sideband because it's interfered with Radio Nacional Amazonas on 6180 from Brazil. That is much stronger. So, really? Audio clipping? That's weird. Audio clipping. That's interesting. I never heard audio clipping here. So I don't know exactly what is happening. Might be something on the way that it's working. As long as it's not too bad. Or maybe I'm hitting the microphone with my, I don't know. Weird. Scott George. Nice to have you here. Work 10 hours a day. Nobody is going to stand close to me. Larry Cordy, KB2DYU. Donald Hosmer, nice to have you on board. 6932 lower sideband. Crittenden total 4. What antenna are you getting? So it's a wideband. It's a wideband. It's a loop antenna. And I'm going to give you guys the link to where I purchased it anyways. So you guys can check it out. So here is where I purchased the antenna. So you guys can see it. For those that don't know, it's a loop that is a very wide band loop. It receives from 100 kilohertz all the way up to 180 megahertz. And what it is interesting is for $55, it comes with tubing to put it up and cables, even the metal parts to actually put it onto a antenna post or balcony or whatever. It is kind of interesting. So anyways, it's done. It's purchased. So I'm going to get that thing eventually. This is going to be interesting. I can't wait to test it out, honestly. Really going to be interesting to test out. Yeah, probably was virus. I think it was virus 19 because I recognized the guy's voice. So it's probably virus 19 pirate. Absolutely. I recognized the guy's voice. What else do we have? What else do we have? Mike Hill watching. George Gregoriou. Nice to have you on board, enjoying the stream, listening to it through my Zenith 6D516 pancake. Alembic 65 says, fellow old 50s part here. The most recent truly classic rock for me is Ween from the 90s. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. The mollusk. RFDXer, static crashes are nonstop on a shortwave bands tonight from here in sunny Colorado. Sam, I found this 6661 upper sideband used by aircraft to communicate digitally. Yeah, it's HFDL, I think, and you can actually there's a software on PC that you can use. Apparently, there's information in there, including tracking of the planes in the air. So 6932 is off the air at this time. Clark Jelson, nice live purchase. So I got a loop. I got the loop. A loop. I have the extra body Whisper Beacon kit, QRP Labs last week, and I haven't heard from them at all. Yeah, well, it should be fast. They're pretty much all fast now. From most parts. So I don't think it's going to take that long. So this is going to be interesting. So I bought this item. It's going to be interesting to see. It seems that he had one left, and I purchased the one left. That's Mark Cope. That's a question I can't answer right now. I will know when I get it about the BISD. I've stopped using the bias T power to the MLA30 from the RSB devices. Noticed that it was making the antenna noisier, actually. Mongoose, as I mentioned earlier, static clipping your audio seems when you speak loud. Oh, maybe when I speak too loud. Okay. No, that's cool. Thanks for letting me know. I've never heard anyone talk about that before. Maybe I should talk from a distance. This is I'm using Google Chrome with YouTube's ability to stream, which is very different from using software dedicated for that. So it could be possible. So maybe if I speak a little, maybe I'm speaking too close to it. Because here I have no indication. The audio indication on the bottom of my window, it doesn't show me that actually there's sound coming in. So I have no idea, except you guys listening to me and telling me, yeah, I'm hearing you, that sound is going in. Frank Ireland, the MLA30, the beautiful thing about it is it's small enough that it's actually good for indoor use because it's not very big. And that's the reason why the MLA30 is perfect for indoor use. It's not very big. You could, put it up on a camera stand or anything, on a tripod, and it would you'd be able to have it hold on a tripod. So it's very, I put mine on a broomstick, and so it gives you an idea that it's not very big. And if you don't have a lot of space, it's actually perfect. Buenas noches, buenas noches, Roberto Rojas. Nice to have you here, Chin Chin. I've been really, really thinking about what I'm going to do with my so my sloper in the backyard is kind of the post at the end of the fence is like crooked like this, with all the wind and the snow and the ice and whatever happened this winter. So I'm wondering, what do I do? Do I fix it and repair it and make it and leave it like that because I got a sloper and it's going to be nice to have a sloper? Do I change it maybe into a long wire or a wire because it's not a long wire below a certain point? What do I do with my antenna in the backyard? I don't know what to do. It's very noisy, and at the same time, if I remove it, maybe I don't want to remove it. It's there. Why not just fix it? And there's that possibility there. RFDXer 6986.5 is a MarsNet, if I'm not mistaken. I hear it regularly. Six nine eight six, 6986.5. So thanks for letting me know. Let me know if the fact that I'm talking further away, if it clips or if it's better. What else do we have? Levi Nathan from Israel. Nice to have you on board. Well, there could be higher noise. One of the things that's interesting also is that there's some geomagnetic activity happening, and because there's a coronal hole in the sun that's driving a lot more solar wind right now. And so there could, sometimes the sun's interaction also can create some noise. There was a nice video that I've watched a couple of weeks ago where the guy is showing that when there was more activity on the sun, he could actually detect crashes on the shortwave bands that were related with the activity of the sun itself by using a solar telescope. It's kind of interesting. The sun can create much more noise than we think. Art Dud. Nice to have you here, Art, New Jersey, K2ADC. Sardar 91. I am fine. Where are you located, my friend? Always let us know. Ham Radio, KN4YEM. Nice to have you here. Glenn from Tennessee. Nice to have you here. Non-counterproductive. Making a loop antenna is not difficult if it's for a specific range, like about a third of the shortwave band. Yeah, but sometimes you just want to buy something that's already there. Because I would prefer making a loop than purchasing one at $400 or $500 or $300 or $400. But when a loop is $40 or $50, you know what? Why not? And these are amplified loops here, because the loop that we're buying is not just a passive loop. These loops are, amplified magnetic loops. So they have an amplifier and everything. Javen Robert Milligan, WebSDR, University of Twente, in the Netherlands, down today due to broken antenna. Oh, really? Oh, that's sad, because it's really, really... it's really, really interesting. It's such a good receiver. It's sad. I hope they fix it fast. Oh, really? Power went out from the storm, man. That is. I hope it's not going to be too bad, guys. Hope it's not going to be too bad. What else do we have here? George, looks like the K180 is still in stock on eBay US. Oh, it was out of stock here, so I don't know. Maybe they restocked. Here in the, it said they had two when I purchased. I'm hearing, by the way, 698. It's 6.5. Somebody just calling all stations. 698 6.5. Friend of Crows. Nice to have you here from Columbus, Ohio. Rev the Exer says audio sounds excellent. Danny Shortwave, maybe use a sloper antenna to transmit when, that's a few people told me, you know what, that sloper can be used for the transmit. And I said, you're right. And the sloper is actually designed to also be used for transmit up to 100 watts. I looked at the instructions, and it stated to be capable of up to 100 watts the way it is. So maybe that's the other thing. Maybe I should just make sure that it's up and okay, and keep it for when I get my ham license and transmit. Handy Morrow, nice to have you here, my friend. So yes, guys, live, you guys saw me buy that K180 LA active loop broadband receiving antenna. What makes me curious on this antenna is the fact that it goes all the way up to 180 megahertz, and that I wanted to test. I'm so curious to see this thing in action. It's going to be very interesting. And it's going to be interesting. I'll be able to, compare it to the MLA30 loop. Don Burns, nice to have you here from Louisiana. Sheldon Harvey from Greenfield Park, Quebec. Nice to have you here. Nice to see that you're safe and sound. I had a very weird encounter at the grocery this afternoon. So I needed some groceries. I went out to get the groceries, which is pretty much the only thing you can do. And there was this guy in front of me that refused to clean his hands. So there's a guy there, because at that grocery store, there's the guy that has the stuff, and you got to put your hands out. And he just, sprays it on your hands. And there was a guy that was totally stubborn, and I'm not doing this. And the guy was like, 6'4" and large, and the guy that is supposed to throw him out, it was like big like this. And I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting here. What are they going to do? That guy 6'4" is if he decides that he's going in, he's going in. What are you going to do? And so I get to my turn, and there's that distance, of course, social distancing. And I look at the guy and says, I just looked at the man and I said, why you don't want to clean your hands? Like everybody's doing it. It's just normal, and we're all in here for the same thing. And the guy looked at me. He said, "You're gonna do it?" I said, "Look, I'm gonna put my hands. I'm gonna do it, and let's make a deal. After I'm over, I want to see you doing it." And I moved away, and I looked back, and the guy did it. When I got outside, the guy that was spraying and checking everybody, he looked at me, he says, "Thank you so much for what you did." I said, there are many ways to deal with it. I thought, let's try to be friendly and make it as a kind of a kind of a contest thing. If I do it, you do it. How about that? Let's make a deal. I don't know. And it worked in this case. It could have not worked at all. But it was like, and I looked at him and I said, no offense, but he was like 6'4" and large like a refrigerator. Honestly, if that guy said, I'm not doing it, none of us would have done anything, because it's like, I don't want to get punched in the face by some stranger because I told him to clean his hands, What else do we have? Yeah, there's a lot of these theories of all sorts of things, Steve, and I have a hard time with all of that. It's like far stretch. It's not that I have an open mind on all the theories of stuff, and sometimes, and even very often, it's something that is surprising. But show me the facts, the real ones with real scientists. We'll see, because right now, right now we're in low solar activity. There was no solar flares and no nothing in the past years. Jojo, nice to have you on board. Just won an ICOM IC2GX80 HD2 meter. Excited to have it. Cool. Lucky you. So stay safe and more power to your station. Nice to have you here, KM6EHD. Kamagzi 1976. Nice to have you here. Yeah, the sloper I have here, Art, is pretty much west to east direction. Ranging Mamedov, nice to have you here. And where are you located, Rangin? Nice to have you on board. What else we have? Vienna Sano says, wow, 143 viewers. Just 58 thumbs up, 59 now. Thumbs up, guys. From the Crows, good thinking. Well, it's like either that or it's like I'm not going to go near that guy anyways. So, if he goes in, and I just keep my distance, and who cares? But, Kima Hain, nice to have you here. Says, don't punch in the face by a big guy with dirty hands. Pretty much. Even if he didn't have dirty hands, I just don't want to be punched in the face by a 6'4" guy that's big like a refrigerator. Bob in Northeast Ohio, nice to have you on board. A modern day supermarket hero. Oh yeah, that's a big that's a big one. Danny Shortwave Sometimes you have to talk using a different approach. Yeah, you know. I mean, honestly, if he would just go in and was like, yeah, go in and just stay away from me. That's it. The rest, like, Northern Dawn listening to a Skywarn net. Stephen Wood, evening, everyone. Nice to have you here. Hearing several Brazilians on 60 meters, 48.75, 48.85, 49.25, 48.85. Let's check it out. 48.75. These are all Brazilians? 48.75. So I've got very weak traces here. I can't make out anything, Stephen, but one thing that I do notice is that on the SDR here, I see weak traces of every station you're mentioning on those frequencies, 48.75, 85, 49.25, and 49.85. That's kind of interesting. Kimberly, nice to have you here from California. What else do we have? Adesh Manar Ramkisun. Nice to have you here from Trinidad and the Caribbean. Cool. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Hey, Kadarius. Nice to have you here. Olympic 65. Another Bob from Northeast Ohio on here. Nice to have you on board. So one of the questions I wanted to answer earlier about two things that Elizabeth asked. And actually, it's so funny because I told Elizabeth, I'm going to check my email regularly tonight. If I forget your question because I blabber too much, can you take the time to just send me the question again? And I was actually looking to see if she came back with that. And so one of them is about the FSK mode on the Kinwador 5000. Because she noticed that it's off frequency. And she wondered if it was normal, and it is. On the Kinwador 5000, they had a button called FSK for frequency shift keying. It's designed to show the correct frequency, but have the something like 1.9 kilohertz off for the audio tone that you need to decode the digital signals. So if you're listening to 6339.5 from Boston, it's going to be 6330. I'm trying to remember, actually. It's not 6339. It's 6340.5, I think, from Boston, something like that. Or 6341. And you'll be 1.9 kilohertz off. That will give you the perfect tone for the digital decoding. But yet, on your Kenwood's display frequency, you have the correct frequency of what is that transmission. Because when we tune a digital signal, we have to be off in upper sideband in order to give us the tones on the frequency that are needed for the software to decode it. But that also means that when you're tuning, you're not on the correct frequency. You're off on that frequency. So Kenwood used that with a button called FSK. That was, let's give them the tones they need for the decoding, but still display the correct frequency. And that's why the FSK button is there. There's just one thing I never understood on that FSK button, is that we all decode in upper sideband. The FSK button on a Kenwood R5000 is lower sideband. And so you have to use inverted on the digital software, on decoding software, to have it decode correctly. I never understood that part of it, because the idea isn't bad. The idea of having the center frequency correctly displayed. Because I mean, if I post a video of, like, I posted a video last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, of the satellite image, the code from Boston. My SDR here is tuned to 6339.1 or something like that. That is not the frequency of the Boston transmission. It's 6340 point something. So I'm actually not tuned to the frequency. I'm tuned to what gives me the correct tone and tuning that WeatherFax signal. So the idea is not bad. It's actually an interesting idea to have that FSK that will always display the correct frequency on the radio. The other question, and this one is interesting. So she has an old Panasonic receiver. And so what she says is that when she tunes a station that is strong, when she tunes up, there's a repeat of that same station. She's even mentioning that one evening she was listening to the 49 meter band, and the 49 meter band had several strong stations, and when she tuned upwards, many of them were repeating before she got higher in frequency. And so she's wondering what's happening. Well, that happens when a receiver is a single conversion. Single conversion radios often have what we call an image, which is double the frequency of the local oscillator. Most radios use 455 kilohertz as a local oscillator. That means 455 times 2 is 910. Depending on the design of the radio, most of the time you're actually listening to the same signal, 910 kilohertz higher. Some are inverted, so it's 910 kilohertz lower, but most of them it's higher. So that's why you have repeats. I have several radios here that have displayed that phenomena. It's simply because a single conversion receiver, the way that it mixes in the signal, it generates a second signal in that with that first IF mixin. And what happens is that is what you hear. So the first one you hear is the correct frequency, and the one you hear a little higher, 910 kilohertz higher, is the mixing product within your first intermediate frequency in the radio. That is 910 higher. So it's like the generated mixed signal in the radio is what you hear higher, basically. I know it's a little complex, but it's single. That's why they created, after a certain time, double, triple conversion radios. That would eliminate that problem, because what they would do is they would take the first IF would be a high frequency one. What you want is to have a high frequency that is higher than the range of your radio. So if you do a first IF at 40 megahertz, well, what happens is that that 40 megahertz is outside the range of shortwave. So it still creates an image. And if you use a scanner radio and use a portable radio that has double conversion, for example, if you know that frequency of the double conversion, and it happened to me a few times that I did receive that, and you double that and go into a scanner radio on VHF or whatever and tune, you'll see that your scanner radio gets something when it's very close to the radio, because there's still an image. But that image is outside of the range of the radio, so it doesn't interfere anymore. It doesn't give that double signal that you hear all the time. So that's why, today we don't see a lot of single conversion receivers. They're mostly the cheapest analog ones are like that. But that is something that was fixed with, double or triple conversion that pushes that out of the range of radio, basically. Jason Wallace, nice to have you here from New Zealand, my friend. Senthil Kumar, Where are you located? Yeah, the FM one is 10.7 kilohertz, not hertz. It's kilohertz, I believe. But 455 or megahertz, yeah. 455 is on the cheapest radios. Single conversion is 455, makes it 910. The cheap ones, non-counterproductive. The cheap analog ones still that use 455 for shortwave also. So, for example, my realistic DX100 that I started with is like that. It has that 455 kilohertz for shortwave also. So there's an image 910 kilohertz higher of that signal. So I'd say most cheap analog portables today have that flaw because they're single conversion. And 455 is the standard because it probably costs close to nothing to follow that standard, which is what everybody uses. If you had to change that, you would have to recreate a new circuit. And most of the radios today probably use designs that are extremely standard with standard parts to lower the cost as much as possible. Crossley fiber, it's kind of it's not an harmonic per se. An harmonic is, so you might hear an harmonic on shortwave sometimes. Glenn Hauser often reports harmonics of different stations. Radio Havana, Cuba apparently is the champion of harmonics on shortwave. An harmonic is a perfectly nice designed transmitter that is perfectly installed and well maintained should be transmitting on a frequency, say 10 megahertz. It should not create harmonics. It should not have any resonance around it, because if it's well designed, probably every transmitter has harmonics, but they keep it in a very, very weak harmonic so that it's pretty much impossible to detect. You're not going to transmit that harmonic. An example of that is very strong stations on AM band. If you have a very powerful AM station around you that is not too far away, if you take your shortwave radio, go to the double of the frequency, you might hear it much weaker, but you might hear the audio still. So an example here, there was a station, a Haitian station, 1610 kilohertz, that was for a while very close to me, like barely 1.5 kilometers, 2 kilometers away. They were using 1 kilowatt into a loop. They were so powerful here that on my, and I'm talking about the times when I was using my Kenwood R5000, they were on 1610. I could hear him quite well on 3220. So 1610 times 2 is 3220. They were coming in weaker than the original, but still very easy to hear. And so harmonics are generated, by the kind of the resonance of the circuit and the antenna system. And when it's finely tuned and perfectly done, harmonics are very, very, very small and very weak. When things get out of hand, so say you don't tweak that transmitter regularly, say you don't tweak the antenna, the fact that all of that gets slowly out of sync and out of tune will actually increase the harmonics. So harmonics will show up always at a fixed double, triple, quadruple of the frequency. Each harmonic is usually weaker than the one before. So Radio Havana, Cuba has been known to generate harmonics, and I heard Glenn Hauser talk about harmonics of Radio Havana, Cuba up to the lower VHF range. When the propagation is real strong, real good up to the higher frequencies. There were some harmonics there, and there are stations that will have harmonics very high. I remember hearing a few harmonics in the like 24, 25 megahertz band from stations that were in the 25 meter band. So remember, if a station is at 12,000 kilohertz, its first harmonic is 24 megahertz. You might be hearing something if it's not well maintained. So it can happen. And sometimes it happens that you, for a short while, a shortwave station emits an harmonic. Here in the receiver, we're not talking about an harmonic per se. We're talking about a mixing product. It's the signal received with the first intermediate frequency. Might be an harmonic actually, because it is double, so it could be an internal harmonic. But that mixed product does that 910 kilohertz. It's not impossible to be an harmonic technically, because like I said, it's double. Senthil Kumar from India, nice to have you here. Chris Alpha Tango, nice to have you on board. It happens that we are busy with life, but it's nice to have you here. Terry Cook, KF7BQ, nice to have you on board. Hikadarius, your dad's got a female cat, Gizmo. Cool. Nothing like a cat, it's like giving you all that love. Nick Farrow, nice to have you here from Oklahoma. But it's crazy what happens, all of these transmitters and all of the interactions that we don't think about that could happen in all of this. It's really crazy when you think about it. Just checking out the email here. Elizabeth, still listening? So Elizabeth, you didn't fall asleep with my explanation here. Says, thank you for explaining all of this. It's really, really interesting. She says that she didn't think about that for the FSK mode. And she said that she had read somewhere that there was something about the first IF on the single conversion radios that have that create that second frequency there. Actually, some use that as a I've seen some people. That use a first receiver and use a second one that doesn't have single sideband, and use that IF trick to listen to single sideband on a second radio. It usually doesn't work that well because it's very drifty, because usually they're analog radios, but it does work. Actually, it does work. I should make a demonstration. I got enough radios here to try it out. Chris Alpha Tango, no beer, orange or lemon drink. This is a vodka and orange juice, which is, I think, called a screwdriver normally, that I'm having. So no beer. There's no beer at the grocery where I'm going. They're kind of cleaned out. So, hey, vodka and orange. Jane Dagger, nice to have you here. Hope you are well also. Nicodarius, Paul. I hope you're giving him a lot of treats. Oh, yeah, don't worry. Paul is really, really going well. Now that the snow is gone, he's happy because he can finally go under the fence and go into the neighbors' yards. Saw a really nice little something this afternoon. He was going at the third house from where I live. It's a little family, very quiet family. They barely say hi. I mean, the wife will kind of smile at me and kind of nod, but not saying necessarily hi when I walk by. But I always say hello. The husband is another story. The husband is, I don't know. He seems to have a hard time saying hello to people. But a couple of years ago, when I had Paul, I think it was the first year that I had Paul. Paul was in their yard, and I'm lucky because everybody loves Paul, so nobody complains. And she had her second child, and her first child was maybe, I don't know, 2 years old. And the dad, when he saw Paul, took his 2-year-old boy and brought him next to Paul so that he can pet Paul. And Paul, being a very nice cat, just sat down and let himself pet by the kid. And I looked at it and was like, "Oh, this is cute." He's letting his kid pet Paul the cat. So this afternoon, they were all, so they're of course observing social distancing. So they're kind of staying on their yard, and they have little games in the backyard so kids can play. And so dad was there with the two kids, and the two kids were sitting, and Paul arrived, and I was wondering about the interaction, what's going to happen. And both kids just approach Paul very cautiously, and the dad looked in, and they would they pet Paul and so on, and Paul was like all friendly and nice. And I thought, well, maybe it made their day. Paul the cat was there to say hello. And then Paul came back. And I know they know that it's my cat. Because there was one time I was on the last summer, I was on the balcony in the back listening to the radio, and Paul was on their yard, and the wife looked at me at a distance on the balcony with a smile, and it's like, kind of nodding at, well, your cat is here, and but not complaining or anything. So it was kind of nice. It's like, yeah, if Paul can make people happy and kids happy, why not? What I was mostly scared with what's happening is that there's a report that one cat from Europe caught the virus because of the sick owner. So I was hoping that because of what's happening, they wouldn't be scared of Paul the cat, thinking that he might be bringing virus everywhere, And Paul, I have no control. He wants to go out, he wants to go out. He goes all around. So, it was a little I was wondering, but everything was nice. It was like, yeah, okay, And I still remember last year, the old lady that lives next to me in the little house, she's like 95 or something, and she lives with her daughter. So I'm talking to her daughter, and I say, she looks at me, she says, "That orange cat is your cat, right?" I said, "Oh yeah, that's my cat. His name is Paul." And I said, "I hope you don't mind that he goes on your yard." And first thing she says, "Oh, not at all. When my mom sees your cat, she wants to go out on the balcony to pet him." And Paul actually comes and lets himself pet by my mom, and she really loves your cat. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So Paul is the spreading love everywhere, which is nice, really nice. Shelly, nice to have you here. My old dog had to go to Rainbow Bridge, as they say. It is sad. It is sad. Take care, Shelly. It is sad. I always think about the day that Paul will leave this planet, and I'm gonna cry my heart out. It's as difficult. Honestly, it's as difficult to lose a pet than it is to lose a loved one in the family. Honestly. Man. Jane Dagger, a dielectric screwdriver. I like that. Oh man. A tear in my beer. Oh man. Yeah, Nick Farrow, and that's what I'm gonna have to do. Make my own beer. I almost did there a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago. I there was a kit, a beer making kit, and I was like, oh man, I want to buy it. I'm gonna make my own beer. So Matt, in about 5 minutes, Denver is going out to their patios and backyards to owl. Interesting. We don't have that here. No meetups. I know that you guys in the US, I was watching a tech show today and they were saying in New York City, people meet up at like 8 p.m. or something on their balconies and do stuff. We don't have that here. Here, all we have is rainbows everywhere. Kimberly says, really, your beer is getting cleaned out? What else at the liquor store is being cleaned out? Well, pretty much everything is okay. It's really just the beer. That's why I'm getting vodka. I mean, all the hard alcohol is there on the shelves. It's just the beer that's going. Thank you, Darius. Cats rule and dogs drool. Depends on the dogs, but some dogs do drool. That's for sure. Oh man. Danny Shortwave says Tiger at the Bronx Zoo. Yeah, I got that. I saw the article. So what I've seen is there were one cat and a couple of dogs that got it, but they were in very close contact with sick people. Actually, their owner had the virus. But it's kind of scary because you don't want to have. One thing for sure is that means if I get it, I gotta do something to make sure that I don't take care of Paul for a little while. And what am I going to do? It's like I'm going to call a friend and say, look, I'm sick. I can't have somebody come over. It's kind of complicated suddenly. So the best way is not to get it. William Helms, my brother had a post on Facebook in the past, their ancestors, blah, blah, blah. Well, we got to wash our hands, I think that's always been there. But a lot of people don't do it. Ekateria says Paul has fans everywhere. Oh, yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy. Take care, VT Radio 73. Ekateria doesn't drink any type of alcohol. That's all right. A lot of people don't drink. My sister, my sister Carol, she doesn't drink at all. So the walkie-talkie behind is not falling. It's there. It's just there. It's not complicated. I mean, viruses rule our world, and you just got Electric Rider had a mean-looking dog, but it was friendly, so I put underwear on her and let her loose. She's a star in the neighborhood now. It doesn't. Cat. Sometimes dogs look mean, and they're like really, really cute and cuddly, but it's just crazy. Nerdy Gray Fox, take care, my friend, and hope to see you Friday at the live show. Ali Reza, nice to have you here, Ali. Sheldon Harvey had not had a single alcoholic drink since 1978. I know a lot of people that don't drink. It's I don't know what there's a mix of all sorts of things that bring us to drink alcohol or stuff. Social environment, people you're with, and even that, some people. My sister tells me that anything she ever tried is so disgusting to taste that she just can't, which is kind of interesting. And let's be fair. There's a lot of alcohol that tastes like crap, and I can't. Hard alcohol, like I would say, like whiskey. Forget it. Whiskey, I just can't. It's horrible, and I'm sorry, but it's bad. But I don't know. It's like it's okay. I got no I get people from time to time saying you shouldn't drink on the show, and it's like it's like a big social event for me. So I'm a social guy, and I drink in social moments and social environments in general. So for me, it's like I'm in a big party with all of you guys, and we're talking radio. I don't tend to go overboard on alcohol, rarely. And when it does, well, the show lasts 5 hours. But one of the things that I always want to try to make clear when we do the live shows is, I drink alcohol, but you don't have to. If you drink tea, if you drink coffee, water, whatever, it's perfect. I don't like, I got a couple of guy friends that are like, well, you gotta drink till you're dropping. No, I'm not that kind of guy. If you are with me at a party and you don't drink, you don't drink. That's okay. And if you do drink, I'm not gonna bring you to drink like there's no tomorrow and have you go sick or something. I That's not the kind of thing I like. I don't like pushing somebody to drink. At the same time, I want the respect of that, meaning that there are some guys that I go out with that are like, let's drink like there's no tomorrow. And I will be like, I'll take it easy. I know my speed of drinking, that especially if you go to a bar or something and you come back at 3 a.m. in the morning, let me just drink at my speed, because I know that tomorrow I'll be okay. Because if I drink at your speed, I'm not going to be okay, you know? And you don't have to. I mean, you know, um, Matt says, back from the howl. I even managed to get my wife to give a quiet, kind of embarrassed howl. That's kind of nice. Ray says, well, pick up a case of Molson Canadian or Golden for your net live show. I've not had it for over 25 years. Wow. You know that for diabetes, a friend of mine has diabetes. Molson Canadian. It's one of the beers that has the lowest amount of sugar. Oh, man. What else do we have? Joël Bérard. Good night. Take care. Labatt's. I don't drink any of those Canadian beers. I like micro brewery stuff. From XZ76, my cat had kittens, 5 of them, and they are adorable. Oh, wow. Kittens are so cute. So, hey, guys, as we are diverting into different areas, we've been on for, 2 hours and 8 minutes. I'm going to take it easy for the rest of the night. I hope you enjoyed the show. And the next show is Friday. It will be at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 20 UTC. Hope you guys enjoy the show. And hey, it's Easter weekend. That means already we have a higher amount of pirates. I don't know if that means we're going to be even higher than the higher amount of pirates we already have. But Easter weekend is a pirate weekend usually, even though now we're in a pirate moment, I guess. So Easter weekend coming up. And I tried to order chocolate online. In all the places that I like, they're all out of chocolate. I was like, what? No more chocolate? What's that? That's crazy. So I don't know. I'm going to try to find something. So Friday we'll be back, of course, with a regular show. Hope you guys enjoyed. So tonight, live, I purchased the new K180 thing antenna, the loop antenna. It's going to be interesting to see when I get it and talk about it, of course. Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. It's always nice to have everybody here. Nick Farrow, beer tastes like feet. but I'll drink it anyways. It depends on the beer, beer it's not all equal. There's very horrible beers out there, and there's also your taste buds. There are beers for certain types of people. For example, I can't IPAs, forget it. I do not want to have an IPA. It's disgusting for my taste. But there's a friend of mine that it's the only thing he wants to drink. It depends on everybody. So take care, everybody. Love you all. And really, really nice to have all of you on board. John Bolton, KE0PCI. Nice to have you here. I will give Paul a big, big hug. Big hug. Omar Meng, nice to have you here. Sorry to sign off as you arrive, but soon. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. Love you all, and see you on Friday. And radio on. Turn that radio on and listen to the world. Bye, everybody.